me for like how do you design a linked list, and I never wrote code, so of course even I prepared, I got confused over there. So is the T really important, or as long as you have the capability to understand the software your team is building and how that actually connects to right in a bigger service oriented scheme? So
What
like
you
just
said is correct. Yeah, what you said is correct. That's basically you have to understand the domain, right? Before you go into the interview, you have to understand from the interview itself what you're interviewing for, right? If you don't know what you're interviewing for and they ask you the technical question or the technical part of the interview, you won't be able to answer that in you'll probably touch on the surface, but not be able to understand the second part of your answer that you just answered yourself, where how does that fit into the bigger picture? If you
Mhm.
just talk about how it fits into the bigger picture and not dive deep into it, then you won't gain their liking, right? They won't like you.
Mhm.
So you have to understand at least the domain that you're interviewing for. If not, then you should brush up before you actually go back and try to interview for that specific domain.
Because in tier two or tier three companies, like even if you are like they don't have like tech TPM roles, but they are delivery manager roles, right? Where you are still doing the TPM job, but they pair you with an architect, right? So if you have any questions, you can talk to the architect so that together with you can actually get the program delivered. But in FANG companies, there is no architect that works
Yeah,
alongside it.
very little solutions architect. Yeah, there's usually the EM that does it, or some lead engineer.
Okay.
But yeah, so in terms of technicalities, there's formats of how certain companies actually probe you for, right?
Mm-hmm.
You understand architecture. Do you understand the latest technology? Like if you're going for Netflix, do you know anything about Kafka?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what about Kafka? You know,
Yeah.
you draw me something for a two-sided market product, like
Mhm.
um was it Uber or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Or well, if they're going to test you on Kafka, it's definitely going to be a messaging queue service, right?
Yep.
So you have to understand all that information, be able to draw that. Then they're going to drill deeper into that, trying to understand whether or not do you really understand that, right?
I see. Got it.
Oh,
But
so you're saying
see,
how much tea to answer your question?
yeah.
It's enough tea to make sure that to ensure your interviewer knows that you at least are somewhat of a turnkey employee
Uh-huh.
as you sit down on the first day of the job. So
Got it.
yeah, if you can't even draw an architecture and be confident about it, you better brush that
Yeah.
up before you go into an
Yeah.
interview.
So L, from your experience in FANG companies, anybody who gets selected as TPM, would that at some point of time, like what for some length of time, would they have to write like object-oriented code, or they could come from like a scripting back? I don't know, maybe it's too specific, but like, do you think TPMs have written code for 4 or 5 years before moving to TPM, or
A lot do. But I'll tell you, I was not a coder before this.
oh, you were not?
I was not a coder. I was not a developer. No. Uh,
Okay.
but I have a lot of knowledge in the domain of AI, and I have a lot of knowledge in the algorithms that are used and which algorithms will be doing better in terms of predictability if we're
Okay.
using that kind of an algorithm or even computer vision.
I
Uh,
see.
and so to answer your question, um, do you need to do any coding?
Yeah.
Usually not, unless you don't have enough people to help unit test something, right? So
Mm.
I would help, but you know it's simple as writing a code that will just test it. That's all.
Got it.
Yeah,
Eh,
or automation that will just test it. But no, usually there's no coding required.
got
And
it.
even if there is, it's just so simple that you can do a recursive or something like that. It's not.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you this: if you're going to go try again for Google, you
Mm.
better brush up on Leet code.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
There's other companies out there. Yeah, let's put it that way.
Mhm.
Other good companies.
Yeah, got it. All right. Thanks, El. Thank you.
Al, I have a follow-up question to Asim. You just stated one statement to deep dive into. If you can just say it again, I just need to process it in my brain. Uh, if you want to get into that and you have to learn in a deeper sense. I completely not following that. If you can just say it again.
You mean how to deep dive?
Yep.
Well, there's something as such as scratching the surface, right? So if you ask
Right.
me, do I know anything about APIs? And I answer you, yes, I do. And then you follow up, yeah, what's an API? And all I do is tell you that it's a way to between two components between two components of the same software, or even between two components that are separate from each other, let's say microservices or something like that, and to enable them to have a bridge to talk to each other, right? That's all I'm going to say. That's scratching the surface, correct?
So while interviewing with these big FAANG companies, not specifically with the big FAANG, deeper dive, you have to have that knowledge in depth while interviewing on specific technologies, or you feel like, jack of all, master of none, would that absolutely works?
So my strategy is storytelling. They ask you, do you know anything about APIs? That's an open-ended, really wide question, right? So what I'll do is, yeah, you know what? I was just working on something at this place that is a large language model, as an example. From the large language model, I was waiting for these endpoints and weights in order for us to implement them in goal inference or goal whatever, like the goal realization. And from there, I wasn't able to do it. I need to do some sort of API call that I needed to test. And this, I tested it with Postman. It didn't work. There were certain reasons for it. There's latency and something else, like something where they say, oh my gosh, this person has actually touched not only the surface, but actually worked with APIs. So in the end, they know that you know how to test your API through Postman. They know how you can write API in format. They know how you can enable two components to talk to each other through that API. They know that you can call the API even if you're, let's say, working with iOS or something like that, from a component within the iOS to another component within the iOS, to enable that to turn on the camera so that it can be used as eyes for a large language model and whatnot, then you're pretty golden, right?
Right. Makes sense. Thank you. Back to who's going to go next?
I think it's Santosh next.
Yeah. Yes, Santosh. Santosh, are you a guest?
I'm a PM Accelerator Pro student.
Oh, sorry. I don't see you in the group class. All right, so continue. I saw you someone else guest.
Yeah, I think I just joined the class.
I want to see what your starting progress. Go ahead.
Sure. My question to Al is, we know that, coming from a mid-sized company or from a startup, product managers usually work with engineering teams that are closely knit and they have their own small teams and everything. But I want to understand, how do product managers in FAANG companies work when they have to collaborate with other product managers, when that there are two teams that follow different processes. For example, team A follows agile and team B follows hybrid process, and you have to collaborate on some product idea where you have to work with a different product manager. How do teams approach in FAANG companies?
Product manager talking to other product managers.
Yeah.
Are they under your same org? That's my question to you. Are they part of the same organization as you? Like,
yeah.
I'm not talking about the company. I'm just talking about Like in a larger company, we have different orgs, right? So let's say this org is specifically